Intro. Resident Evil 1 literally invented the survival horror genre in video games. Other games like Alone in the Dark had a similar structure and feel, but Capcom's classic PS1 title paved the way for countless sequels, spin-offs, and even a successful movie franchise. I'd even go on to say that shows like The Walking Dead wouldn't have been created without the foundation that the original Resident Evil created. Back in 1996, we used to rent games from Blockbuster, and a friend of mine recommended this as we were browsing because the cover looked cool. I'm glad we chose this one because I wanted to rent Jumping Flash. We played this game throughout the weekend, and boy was it an experience. Not only was it a lot of fun, but it was actually pretty scary. I ended up buying the original big box version, the slim case version, and then the director's cut edition, which is the version I'm reviewing today. Needless to say, I was hooked. Because of the fond memories I have, today I want to review Resident Evil 1 for PlayStation 1. This is the director's cut that was released with a demo disc for Resident Evil 2. There was a second director's cut that was released later on with DualShock controller support and an upgraded soundtrack. So yeah, we're not going to touch on that version. With that being said, here's my review of Resident Evil Director's Cut. Story. Resident Evil's story begins with a live-action cinematic sequence setting up the premise. There have been reports of monsters in the mountains of a fictional town known as Raccoon City. Raccoon City's police department sends in their STARS Bravo team to investigate, but their helicopter experiences a mechanical issue and has to do an emergency landing. The STARS Alpha team is then sent in to help, but as soon as they land, they're welcomed by a nice group of mutated dogs. This apparently frightens the helicopter pilot Brad Vickers, and he abandons the team. Karma would strike Brad later that year for abandoning the team.
Jill! Brad! We've got to... Jill! Help! No!
The Alpha team then gets chased into a mysterious mansion where you begin to control either Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine. The story is slightly different depending on which character you choose, but the overall path is basically the same. As you investigate the mansion, you discover that zombies and other creatures you encounter were actually created due to an experiment by a large pharmaceutical company called Umbrella. Umbrella is secretly making bioweapons from a virus they developed known as the T-virus. Although somewhat cheesy and predictable, the story and lore of Resident Evil is one of my favorite aspects of the game, and I also love how it gets further expanded on in later titles. Gameplay. Resident Evil 1 is a third-person action-adventure shooter that combines puzzle elements and backtracking. Resident Evil 1 uses tank-style controls to maneuver your characters throughout the game. If you have never played this style of game, it can take some getting used to, especially if you're used to modern control schemes. As you explore the mansion, you'll find weapons, ammo, and key items to help you solve puzzles that will further motivate the story. When you take injury from combat, you can use first aid sprays or herbal mixtures to help heal your character. As you find new key items, you'll have to do some backtracking to get even more key items, which allow you to proceed further into the game. One of the most satisfying parts of the game is finding new weapons such as the Cold Python and grenade launcher to help you put down those mutated creatures. Ammo can be limited, especially on your first playthrough, so keep that in mind. This isn't the type of game where you should go in guns a-blazing. Conserving your ammo and avoiding fighting is sometimes the best course of action, but it's also a lot of fun to let loose on some mutated bad boys with your Magnum. The main enemies you fight throughout the game are zombies, but you also encounter more challenging enemies such as dogs, crows, spiders, and hunters. Also a few boss fights with a giant snake, giant spider, mutated plant, and of course the final boss Tyrant. The gameplay is a lot of fun and multiple playthroughs are encouraged. If you beat the game under 3 hours, you will receive a rocket launcher straight out of Commando with unlimited ammo. Makes the game way too easy, but it's a blast. This director's cut also has some new outfits, an auto-aim feature, and an arrange mode where items have been reworked. This game encourages multiple playthroughs, and I've certainly had my share of them. Graphics. Keep in mind that the original game came out in 1996 on the original PS1 hardware. Capcom was still learning the hardware, and 3D polygons were a very new technology, but back in the day I thought this game looked really good. The character models are rendered in real time, while the backgrounds are pre-rendered still images. When played on modern displays, the game certainly has aged, but the game was meant to be played on a CRT. You have to remember that we were used to 2D sprite-based games, so to play a 3D game with these types of graphics back in 1996 was impressive. The live-action cinematic sequences were also something we had never seen before, and just added to the overall presentation. Music and sound. The original soundtrack to Resident Evil 1 is still one of my favorite video game soundtracks. It really creates a scary and moody atmosphere that created tension and mystery as you were exploring the Spencer Mansion. Resident Evil soundtrack sometimes gets a bad reputation, but I believe this is due to the very bad DualShock version. The sound effects are also very good, with dogs howling, zombies moaning, and various other effects going on. I really like the shotgun blast sounds exploding a head like a watermelon. And then there's the voice acting. It's so bad that it's laughably good. It has its own charm to it as long as you don't take it too seriously.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Final thoughts. Resident Evil 1 is still a great game to play even to this day. My recent playthroughs on my channel really reminded me of how much I enjoyed the overall experience. Yes, the controls are a bit clumsy, the voice acting is laughably bad, and the game is pretty easy once you played it a few times. I'm glad Capcom has gone back to its roots with Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake, and the upcoming Resident Evil 8 Village. Solving puzzles, blasting enemies, and uncovering the story is just as fun as I remember it, and I hope to see more of these elements in future Resident Evil titles. If you can appreciate Resident Evil 1 for what it was at the time, and not compare it to modern games, I think you'll enjoy it too.